Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've updated anyone on changes to Starkeys-vmfd or virtual MFDs. So I thought I'd take a few minutes and update you on some of the latest features, as there's been some pretty cool enhancements. So with that, let's get right into first a quick update on what Starkeys-vmfd is. Virtual MFD, it's to enable a tablet or any touch screen for that matter, so it could be a laptop, could be a mobile phone for that matter, into being a device or kind of a game controller for a game. It executes various key presses or key combo presses via different macros that you can define and you can control. You may have heard of Game Glass. It's kind of similar to that, and just my own unique take on it, and it was built for the community. So the idea with this website is to allow people to not only download existing panels for different games, but to also create their own panels for whatever game they want, and then be able to upload them to the site to share with the rest of the community. So that's the idea here. The website is a work in progress, but separate from the website is the executable that you download that runs on your PC and executes the macros locally, and then some web page. You can host the web page anywhere, but that's what drives the tablet. It's not an application you install on the tablet. It's just a web page running through HTTP, leveraging WebSockets to connect to the backend game server. It's all JavaScript based, so nothing is going other than where the website's being hosted to get it onto your tablet. That's the only public internet access. Once it's on your tablet, it's all running local JavaScript to the local game server running on the same network between your tablet and your PC. It's not designed for anything to go out to the public internet, so it keeps it private and secure because it's not encrypted. And the reason it's not encrypted is because WebSockets are very sensitive to the type of cert that you use. And if I were to use a self-signed cert, the idea is if I have a secure site, see the site says not secure, which means it's not encrypted. If I had an encrypted secure site, but then the WebSockets are not secure, then it complains. The Chrome won't let it run. In order to encrypt it over WebSockets, you need a certificate, but the certificate is tied to the domain name, but the domain name is your local IP address of your local PC, which is different for everybody. So then you have to use a self-signed cert. And again, Chrome won't support a self-signed cert if you're running a secure website. So I just leave everything non-secure. And there's really nothing to secure anyway, because like I said, everything runs over the local LAN, the local network. The only thing you might want secure is your login, and I'll explain what the login is used for in a minute. And that is secure because that's actually using Amazon APIs, and all the Amazon APIs are secured independently of the website that you're on being secure or not secure. And everything runs locally, so you're not, again, going out to this website of Starkeys with anything that is unencrypted, right? Everything would be encrypted because anything going out there is going to be using the Amazon APIs. Okay, so without further ado, if we click on Alpha, that's going to take you to the download page. So if we go to Alpha, we can read a little bit about it, as I just described. The latest version being 1.07a, A for Alpha. In 1.07, a couple things. One is I disabled the expiration date. I used to have an expiration date because being an alpha, I wanted to make sure periodically people downloaded the latest copy. It was just a pain in the butt to maintain the expired dates, so I just took that out. The other big feature of this version is multiple, well, not multiple, you can choose what port number you're using. And I'll show you that in a minute because I found that some people that were trying it, I think it defaulted to port 80, and other people might have had a web server running on port 80 locally, so there was a conflict, so we needed to override the port. So now it automatically uses a different port number and it gives you the option to override that. All right, so first steps would be to download the executable. Now, when you download it, because it's a zip file, Chrome's going to have some security and you want to say keep it. All right, once it's downloaded, we can open that folder and unzip it. So if we right click on it and come down to extract all, and then from there, we're going to say extract. All right, so that opened a folder and it automatically opened a window with that folder. So if we go into it, there's not an installer. It's already just an executable that you run, and then a little README file. And that README file describes more about the different macros and how you can configure custom macros. So we'll look at that in a little bit. It hasn't really changed since the earlier version. You can copy this to a folder other than your downloads directory, so you keep it and you don't lose it, but you can really put this wherever you want, create a shortcut to it yourself. And now when I run it, because it's not a signed application, it's going to give you this Windows protection warning, don't run it. But if I say more info, then I can say run anyway. And there we have it. It's running. It shows you it's running 1.07a. That's the version we downloaded. If you recall, I mentioned the port number, so we can change this before we log in and instantiate a connection if we need a different port number. So it's defaulting to 8010. All right, so now when we log in, the first time it's going to ask you. Subsequent times, it will remember your username and password, so you just have to click the sign in button without re-entering each time. So we sign in. All right, once it signs in, do you want to allow public and private network access on this app? I always say allow. It may run fine if you don't say allow, but I just always say allow. So with that, it's showing you now the IP address of your local host and the host name. So we're on Master Chief. This is going to be important in a few minutes. I'm going to show you why. But basically, it's saying that Master Chief's local IP address is 192.168.0.166. That is not a public IP address. It's a private IP address. So my tablet's going to connect on the private network to that private IP address on port 8010. All right, now before we do the macros here, we have to go look at what panel we want to run. So we're going to come back to the website, and instead of alpha, we're going to now go to game panels. So from game panels, there's a few things I want to go over. These are existing game panels that have been uploaded, either by myself or by the community. You can choose to run any of these, and it tells you, what game they're for. So Star Citizen 4.0, or really 4X. So that's the one we're going to play with today. But we also have another kind of Star Trek style panel for Star Citizen, DCS panels, Elite Dangerous, etc. And not only can we run macros, but we can also run scripts. So this is an example of a panel, but instead of buttons, it's executing different programs on your PC. So you can have a button that opens OBS if you want to do streaming, or opens Twitch. Another panel that opens Discord. Another panel that opens a web browser, etc. And you can just have, click the button, and it's going to fire up that application via script, and you control what scripts are available. Okay, so right now we're not logged in, and we're seeing all public panels, right? So right now I don't see anything else. If I was logged in, I can also see private panels. So when I create a new panel, I can upload it as private and test it. And if there's an issue with it, we delete it. If there's not an issue with it, I can promote it, and by promoting it, it makes it available to everybody else. Now, if I mouse over here, we see the link in the bottom here, and you see that the link says it's running on Starkeys-vmfd.com, and if we jump to the end, it says file ID, and then this long number. So every panel has a unique file ID, and that file ID matches the JSON macro file. So if I come over here and look at download macros JSON file here, I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice this file ID number is the same. Now when we do this, this is downloading the mappings to your local PC for what each macro does. So macro 1 is going to cycle master modes, and it's basically going to press the B button, and it's going to hold it for +2. So it's going to hold B for 2 seconds. Versus MobiGlass would be F1, NavMaps is pressing F2, etc. So that's just how the macros work. But if you want these, what you have to do is right-click and say Save As. And I would normally save it to my desktop. And I already have it saved here, so I don't have to save it again, but that's the idea. You're just going to save it to your desktop. All right. Once you do that, before I run the macro, if you notice here, as I said, it's showing file ID, but it's not showing my IP address because I'm not logged in. But before I do that, let's go back to here. And now I want to go to macro. And from my desktop, I want to load that macro. Okay, so now it loads the macro. It says successfully loaded it, so there was no typos in the macro file. It also shows me the file ID, which should match what I'm highlighting over here. So 125.01.000.125. So I see those macros match. So now, if I were to click on this, it's going to ask me for my host IP because it doesn't know your host, but it knows what the macro file is. So I could put in this IP address manually. And if I do that, I can call in 8010. So now if I say cycle master modes, if I say MobiGlass, it hit F1. So if I come back to here, we notice that it received those commands. It received cycle master modes, it received the MobiGlass command. Because here, I put the IP address :8010, so it knows how to connect. Now normally you would do this on a tablet, not the PC, but because I'm recording it, I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Now, if I come back here, and I log in, things behave a little differently. I'm going to use the same login that I used to log in with the app. So here we're logged in as Squadronym, and here I'm logging in as Squadronym. So now that I'm logged in, it tells me welcome back, and it also gives me this game host, and it gives me a drop-down. So within that drop-down, it's showing me Master Chief, which matches this here. So if I had multiple PCs and I'm logging in with different PCs, it's going to let me pick which PC I want to connect to when I click a panel. So now if we come down and look at the panel, you'll notice the URL changed. So not only is file ID there, but it also has host IP, 192.168.0.166. Again, it's a local IP address, :8010. It's that port number that we started the client app with, or the server app with. So now when I click this, it's going to look a little different. You notice it never prompted me for the host input at the top. So it's a much cleaner look because it's already populated that and automatically put it into the URL. Now when I click on the screen, it goes full screen for me. And then at this point, we're fully functioning as a panel. It's showing me with different colors and highlights that right now we're in the flight navigation panel. And these are all different commands I can execute. I have a comms panel. If I click here, I'm going to the comms panel. And this gives me different interfaces for, actually in this case, it's these hold for radio talk or for third-party communications environment that works with DCS. It actually will work with Star Citizen too, but that's what that is. I can come back to my flight nav. I can go to flight combat. So from flight combat, we have things that I've designated, more important for flight combat. Commands dedicated to turret, dedicated to countermeasures, transitioning. Is really takeoff and landing. So getting flight ready, requesting takeoff or requesting landing clearance, master modes, VTOL, deploy wings, if depending on what kind of ship you're in, etc. Things that are more focused on power, especially, well, forget the especially. FPS, first-person shooter, so more when you're walking around as opposed to flying. Vehicle nav, utilities. So from utilities, we actually add additional panels. So you have a mining panel, a salvage panel, scanning panel, cameras if you're into recording different views or taking screenshots and stuff and you want to control the camera, as well as emotes. Now, emotes is a bit unique. All these are not defined by default by Star Citizen or CIG. So in order to get those emotes set, you need to set them in Star Citizen. So I'm going to exit here the panel for a minute, hit the back button. So if you come and look at the README file that's here, it actually talks about that, right? And it shows you what all the different ones are and what you would map them to in the Star Citizen interface when you go into settings, and you can actually set these and map them to keybinds. These are the keybinds that I chose. You can change it if you want, but then you have to change it in the JSON file. These are some other ones that I had to set because they weren't set by default in the environment. So if you were to set all of these correctly in the Star Citizen mappings, then they would map correctly to the JSON file. If you want to pick different things, you can map them differently here. So like all the emotes, I believe, right, are these down here. Well, they're not the emotes. These are the communications ones. Somewhere in here are the emotes. So wave, right? So I'm mapping it to a key press combo. That's what the brackets are, that they're pressed together in tandem. Left shift, left control, numpad 9, numpad 8, numpad 7. So you would have to map that multi-key combination in Star Citizen to the wave emote or the salute emote for that to work. Okay. So that's basically the idea. That kind of gives you the high-level view. Also, now that I'm logged in, I mentioned that public, you now have private, preview, and all. So private is just stuff that you've uploaded, and preview are things other people uploaded but maybe aren't public yet. And the idea is, and I think I set it to 5 or 10, the idea is if you're previewing any panels and they do what they say they're supposed to do, then you can approve it. And if you approve it and it gets enough approvals, then it will go to or be eligible for public access. Right now, I think everything is public. In order to get this drop down, you have to be logged in, so it knows what's private to you. And if you're previewing it, it has to know who's previewing it, so it has to know who accepts it or denies it, things like that. That's why you have to be logged in when those drop downs occur. Now, the other big thing I wanted to show you guys real quick is a very new feature in April 2026 is the editor. So the editor is designed to allow you to make custom panels that follow this style, which is very much like a Stream Deck, like a virtual Stream Deck, right? Because they're just simple buttons, rows and columns, and how many rows and how many columns is configurable by you. You'll notice when I go here, right, the size of the buttons and the scale changes, and it gives me more as opposed to when I'm here, all the buttons are a bit thicker and bigger. So it'll dynamically resize based on what you're doing. So to go to the editor, it starts out with a blank environment, and if you have your own working panel downloaded that you want to use and modify it, or you want to use as a baseline and basically copy or clone it, you can do that with the open folder or open zip. So when you look here, right, if I wanted this template, I can say download template zip file here. I'll download the zip file, and then I can use the editor and open the zip file, or I can right click on the zip file in Explorer, expand it, and then open the folder. Either way, kind of behaves the same way. Or I can open the template, which is a starting point, and my template actually is this panel. So if we come here and just say open template, it's going to open it off the website copy, but it's basically open the zip file for that template. Now, because we opened it as a template, there's not a local copy of it, so there's no save yet. Any changes you make are just done in memory until you click Save As. And then once you do Save As, you can open the folder or save your additional changes as you go. Nothing is saved unless you do Save or Save As. When you're all done, you can also export it to a zip file, which would be used back here. When you're logged in, you can say Upload Panel. And upload a panel is going to give you the option to say, what's the panel name? You have to log in again. Once you log in, you can define the panel name and then choose the file, and we'll go through that as well. But first, down here, it's basically showing me the README by default. Startup, you shouldn't have to change if you're using my template. If you're going to completely change things, well, the likelihood of the editor supporting it anymore may not work, because this editor is designed for that Stream Deck style development. You have a config file. Now, the config file has something already filled in. When you do a save as and give it a new name, it will rename the macro name to match whatever the save as is. I thought there were two. Oh, and the panel name, right? So it'll rename both of that, the macro name and the panel name. And the panel name is the collection of panels, so whatever that would be called. Usually, I'll give you an example of that in a minute. You need to put your login name here, because when you upload it, I'm going to make sure that that name matches the name you're logged in as. And if they don't, it's going to get rejected. And then if they do, then it goes through and does a bunch of other checks as well. You can change the game name. We're doing Star Citizen right now, so I would put Star Citizen in here, right? we can say 4.07a, and right. The JSON file is all the current macros that are mapped. You can change what the key bindings are. You can change the description. You can edit this, really as much as you need to. If you need some help on the syntax, you can look at the syntax here, which will give you kind of a breakdown of how things are defined, which is very similar to when you go to alpha here and we come down to, no, it wasn't there. It was here. This is what I'm looking for. This text file here. This text file with the executable that downloaded, this is a lot of the directions on how the key bindings work. All right, so with that, we can come back to here and back to the editor. We also can, is that not working? There we go. I guess you can't have help on and JSON on. I'll have to work on that. So this is just the JSON file. So this is just more of an interactive way of editing it as opposed to getting right into the JSON itself and editing the JSON directly. You can edit either side. Okay, where the real magic happens is under panels. So under panels, we see all the different panels. Flight nav was the one that the game starts in by default. So you can see this probably looks familiar. You recall that host IP and file ID got populated automatically, so I didn't see them, nor do I see the confirm and cancel, because that's all integrated together. But you do see it here from an editing purpose, because that's how the panel, every single panel is designed to support that. So it knows when each one is active, what host it's talking to, and to validate the file ID. If we come back to here, I can load many different macro files at the same time. And the idea is you might have a macro file that's just flight combat, and it's macro 1 does something, macro 2 does something. And you might have another one that is vehicle navigation. And instead of changing it to macro 100, you still use macro 1, macro 2. So you can use macro 1 repeatedly for different macro files as long as the file ID is different. And then when you click here on the, taking you to like vehicle nav, it would be referencing a different file ID to do that. So that was the idea. Right now, all these panels work off one file ID. To have it work off different file IDs, you'd be mapping to a different set of panels. Now, when I'm in here in the preview, I can click on any of these, and I can see over here how it's defined. Right, it's an HTML button versus an image. The text on here for mobiGlass, right? So, what color I want. My buttons are green for this template, and other panel navigations are blue, and then other high priority things are colorized differently. So things like chaff or emergency exit of your seat or eject, and they're also like eject is going to come up and say, are you sure you want to eject, right? As opposed to, so if I accidentally hit that, I'm not automatically ejecting, right? Same thing I think with emergency exit. And again, that's just done with a slightly different macro. So over here, it's confirm macro for type as opposed to here, which is just saying macro. It's a confirm and macro. And if you click the drop down, you can see you have macro, load panel, which is basically the blue buttons, confirm with the macro. No click and custom on click, probably won't use them a lot. Now, when you're in a panel, if it's a navigation panel, you can right click, and right click will take you there as opposed to selecting it. So if I left click, I select it. If I right click, I go to it. So that's just to help you a little bit with those navigations. I can also, I believe, control double click, which is control left click, not even double, single. So if I hold single click, or if I right click, it'll take me to that panel. Now I can also click on a panel and I can move this. Like, let's say I want master modes to be relocated, right? I can drop it there and it's automatically going to put it there, and it's going to resize that row. If I decide, in order to do that, I want to move lights up here. Maybe at the end here, I can do that, right? And it resizes it. I can also click on macro and I can scale it differently. Maybe, yeah, right here is where I can scale it to 200, right? And then that button's just slightly bigger. If I'm on a row, I can say add a button, and it'll just add that button for me, and then I can move that button where I want it in the row. I can delete the button. I can delete the entire row. If I want to add a new row, I can say add row, and it starts to give me a new row of buttons. And again, I guess I can't drag to create a row. I would have to say new row again, and then drag it back down so it matches. So little things that I'm even still fine-tuning and working out within the editor. But once you get all that done, and you're ready to save it, you can do a save as, or you can export it right to a zip file. So do a save as if you're going to keep working on it. Now when you do the save as, it's going to ask you for where do you want me to save this. Okay, so So let me do that. Now it's going to ask for a name. So I would do a name something like Starkeys-vmfd Star Citizen 4.07a. You know, maybe something of that nature, right? And now it saves those changes. Okay, so now if we go back and look at rename these files, the config file and the JSON file to match, and if we go in, it also rename them in here to match, which becomes important because all of that needs to match correctly when I upload it. So if I say export now to a zip file, it's exporting it automatically to my downloads. So if I come in here, I can look at my downloads and I see it right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and Control-C, copy the name without the .zip, because I want to show you how you would upload this. So if I come back to the app and click Uploads, log back in. Okay, now that I'm logged in, I'm going to put the panel name as the file name without the zip, and then choose File, where I'm going to choose the zip. Right, this is the one we just did. And then we're going to say Upload. And it tells me it was successful. Now, it's still not approved yet. It's going to go through a process where it gets validated for everything that I mentioned, and then if it passes all that, it gets put into a private state. And you will get an email sent to you based on your login information. So if I go check my email real quick and see, it will normally take a few minutes. So we will pause here, and I will come back when it's either succeeded or failed. Okay, so we're back. I got an email that it was successfully uploaded. So now what we're going to do is go back to Game Panels. And if I change this to private, now we see the new one that I uploaded, 4.07a. If we look at the JSON file here, it's now got a different number here and a different number here. So if I say Save As, I'm going to save it to my desktop. Okay. Now if I come back here and go to my app, I'm going to change this macro to the 7 macro. Now it's loaded that macro as 0129. Successfully loaded the new macro. So if I come back over here and I come to the panel, you see all the jibber jabber that I was doing. Right? I made this button slightly bigger. Now what I'm noticing here is the preview in my editor is slightly different in that this is kind of rejustifying things left to right, keeping them centered, as is this, as opposed to being left justified. So I'll see if I can fix my editor to accommodate for that, because it's obviously a little bit off here. But functionality, things should still work. So if I click the lights, and then let's say I click boost. Now if I come back over to the editor, hopefully we saw those two keystrokes. So lights and boost. So it's receiving those new commands for that new page under that new macro file. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'd love to get your feedback on the editor and how things are going for you. It is opened in a new tab, so to get back to everything else that was going on, you can just exit that. And here, I'm going to hit the back button. Maybe I should make that open. I don't open that in a new page, because normally you're opening this via a, what's the word? A tablet, not necessarily on your desktop. So it's not as important for it to open in a new browser tab. And after you test it for a while, and if it's working to your satisfaction, you can elevate it, which would elevate it to the preview level, or you can delete it if you need to delete it, because there's issues with it. Okay? So that kind of about wraps things up. I believe if I go to all, it will show me both. So I see the approved panel, and then I see the new panel that is a work in progress. And you notice that because I'm the owner of this, I get delete versus elevate. I don't get that for the other panels, right? Because I'm not responsible for them. All right. Oh, there's actually one other thing I kind of want to go over with you guys. So if we just come back to the panel editing, I kind of showed this earlier, that button type is text or image. The image is important. So image is pulling images from images buttons, and you can put as many JPEGs as you want in here, or other, I think several different image file types are supported. But you can put whatever you want in here, and it's going to pull it automatically down here. So when I have that, if I'm doing this button, I can change it. That was what was it, master modes. So I think I have one here that kind of was meant to resemble master modes. This one here, right? So we can change that and have that in there. And then for mobiGlass, we can go images, and somewhere in here I have one that's a mobiGlass. Right? And we can size these using a scaling option here. So I can say, you know what, I want that to be a little bit larger, a little bit bigger, try and get them to all match. And I can just make this entire thing button-based. It doesn't have to be text buttons. They can just be actual graphical buttons. And in doing so, I get even closer to what a Stream Deck looks like, right? Because I think most people with Stream Decks actually put graphics on there. And whether your graphics actually have the text, such as acceleration limiter up, in this case, or the boost, or whatever graphical image it is that we're trying to do, which I think did I pick the wrong ones? Master modes, right? That was supposed to be master modes, which is a different image. Here's my master modes here. There we go. And this one also picked the wrong one, mobiGlass, right? So where was my mobiGlass? There. I'm not sure what happened when I double-clicked. Something must have scrolled on me, and I ended up picking a different button. But anyway, this is the idea, right? And then once I have it picked, I can mess around with some scaling options to get things to fit the way I want them to fit. And I should probably make this something that you can type in as well, so you can get it to exactly match, or maybe do an auto sizing. I'll probably add some features like that. But in any case, I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit with you when you're doing images for buttons. And down here where we have macros, load panel, confirm, I'm going to add one that's the script as well, because I realized when I was doing this that I don't have script in here. So I have to add the script, which allows you to run a script instead of a macro. And that's about it now. So again, thanks very much. Appreciate your time.